Welcome back. So let's get to work making our color box maker. So I have a new React app started up. It's empty. By the way, if you ever need to run two Create React App instances at once, notice they're on different ports. The solution is 3001 and the starter that I'm about to edit is on 3000. If you have a server already running and you try and start another one, it will ask you, do you want to use a different port? Yes or no. And if you type Y, then it will serve it on 3001 or some other port if that's not available. Okay, so I'm going to come to my source and delete everything from app.js. And the first thing I'd like to start with is the box component. So just getting a box to render, box.js, it's pretty easy. So I'm going to make my component, and then I like to do my export at the bottom, but it doesn't actually make a difference. And really all there is to a box, aside from the button, which we'll come back to, is a height, a width, and a background color. So we're going to pass those in as style. So this is where we do that nested object, unless we wanted to make a separate variable and pass that in. So we're going to have height, and height will be this .props.height, assuming we pass it in under height. However, that assumes that we already have a unit like px or em added. So instead, we're going to interpolate it. We're going to add it in because we'll just assume the user is typing 10 or 20 or just some number. So we're going to add in a unit afterwards. So we need to use these curly braces inside of here to add the variable value to our string. And then afterwards, I'm going to use EMs, but pixels would work as well. And I'm going to duplicate this line and then just change it to width. Okay, so this should now give us height, width, and then background color. And background color, we can just add in this .props.color. Perfect. And that's all we really need, assuming that we pass in those props. While I'm here, I'll also add a button. The only problem is that if I want the button to be separate, I don't want it to be inside the div, then I need to make sure I'm wrapping everything in another div or some component, because I can only return one component. So there's my div, and then afterwards I'll add my button, and we'll just put an X there. So at the moment it won't work. Now let's go to my app.js and import our box from ./box, and then let's render a couple boxes and see if it's working. So the first one will have a height of 10, a width of 20, and a color of purple. That was never in doubt, best color. And then another one will be 20 and 10, or how about 15, and color will be teal. Okay, moment of truth. Our boxes are showing up. Of course, the button does nothing, but we're getting the boxes. Next, we have two choices. Do we work on the box list that is going to render all of those boxes, or do we work on the form? Well, I think it's easier to work on the box list first because the form is going to pass data up to the box list. So let's start on the box list component. That will be the next file I make, boxlist.js, and then we'll export down here. Okay, so here's our skeleton. I'll add an H1 that just says color box maker thingy. And then after that, we know we're going to have a list of all the boxes down there, but right now there aren't any boxes. So let's make a place in the state to store those boxes. So we need to do that in the constructor. And I'll just call super props. And then this .state, the only thing we need to store in here is boxes, and that can be an empty array at the beginning. But if we wanted to, just to make sure our code was working, let's add a single box in. So width will be 10, height will be 40, and color will be orange. All right, so then we're going to loop over this .state.boxes and map out a bunch of box components and render those components. So before we go any further, we should import box from ./box. And then inside of here, instead of doing the loop inline, I think I'll just up top make a variable called boxes and set it equal to this .state.boxes.map. And then for each box, what do we want to make? We're going to make a single box component. We'll come back and give them a key. So for now, we'll just get that warning. But width should be box.width. And box is referring to this right here from map. So we have width. Oh, what am I doing? It needs to be like this. This is JSX, not just a regular object. height is box.height, and then color, and that just needs to match what we called it over here, this.props.color, width and height. So make sure we're doing the same thing. Width, height, and color is going to be box.color, which is what we set here. And then that's going to map these boxes out for us into an array called boxes. Then down here, we can just display boxes. Now if we go to our app and hope that we don't have any errors, instead of importing box, let's import BoxList and then render a single BoxList component. And we should see an orange box. Orange is not defined. Something tells me I didn't add a string. Oof, amateur mistake there. Now we're getting our orange box. Okay, so now we have in our state a boxes array, and anytime it changes, it's being rendered down here. So now we really just need to make the form in order to make that work. I'm going to end this video here. It's getting a little long. And next we'll add the form, which is a good amount of work as we've seen just for a simple form. It's one of the unfortunate parts of React. It's worth it to use React, but it does mean some additional syntax. And then we'll make sure we can remove the boxes as well.